Usually on the show, we talk about everyday objects. But today, we are going to talk about something that's equally everyday, but not an object. We are going to talk about spiders. This is the story of spiders. Hi, this is Richa Govil. You're listening to Story of on radio Azim Premji University. To be honest, I did not really pay much attention to critters growing up. In fact, it was my daughter who got me interested. One day, I remember she walked in through the door carrying this large frangipani leaf in her hands very, very carefully. And she was very excited to show me what she had brought. And when I looked, she had about 10 or 12 earthworms that she had picked up from the garden downstairs. And she had lined them all up. And she wanted to show me, how slithery they were and what they were doing and so on. Another day, she brought home a 2-inch snail, which also got added to our pots. And when I pointed out to her that the snail must be pretty lonely all by itself in our garden pots, she ran down again and brought up a smaller snail, which also got added to our growing collection of wildlife in our garden. So it was not surprising that when we saw an announcement for a spider walk at a lake in Bangalore, we signed her up immediately. And since then, she has been hooked onto spiders as well. So for today's show, I have invited Divya Uma, the faculty member at Azim Premji University, who organized that walk for children many, many years ago.
Oh yeah, I remember that spider walk. In fact, your daughter was very enthusiastic and she was showing me a lot of small and new interesting spiders too in that walk. And it was in Kaikondrahalli Lake, if I remember right.
So let's start with what got you interested in studying spiders?
Actually, I was not particularly interested in spiders to begin with. In fact, I'm also scared of big, fast-moving spiders, to tell you honestly. But after MSc, my neighboring, lab where I was working at, they had some very special spiders, and I got fascinated by looking at them. I had never seen them earlier, and I was hooked onto it ever since. And then once you see one kind of spider, then you start noticing that they're everywhere.
When we think of spiders, we think of them sitting in webs, sometimes very large ones, small ones, these beautiful ones, haphazard ones, all kinds of webs. But do all spiders make webs?
That's an interesting question. In fact, most spiders don't make webs. So we have around 50,000 species of spiders. So when you compare human beings, that's just one species. Like that, we have 50,000 species of spiders on Earth. And majority of them don't build webs. We happen to notice only those that build webs, but there are many which don't build webs. So you might be wondering how they catch prey.
Right.
So spiders that don't build webs, they either can run after the prey or they can just sit in a place. So these are known as sit and wait predators. So they sit very, very patiently till a prey approaches them. Or they can build a tiny little web and hold it like a mosquito net and drop it onto the prey which is going down them, at the bottom. So there are various ways to catch a prey. The very typical and more well-known one is a web-building spider. So they build a web every night and they sit on it and they capture prey which is stuck on the web. And that's what we know typically. Majority of the spiders, so in that 50,000 species which I mentioned, majority of them are solitary. That means they live by themselves. They mind their own ways. But some of them, around 30 of them, are social. That means they live in a group. Like honeybees, they live in a group. They don't have a leader like queen, like a honeybee, but they live in a group. They hunt in a group. They build their web in a group. So they do everything together.
So fascinating. Tell us more about this mosquito net spider.
Yeah, what I meant was it's not like a mosquito net what we sleep in. Don't imagine a large net like that. But these spiders build a small net, hold it in their legs, and then when they see a prey, typically a walking prey like an ant or a cricket or a cockroach, just drop the net on them and they get caught and the spider will quickly go and eat them. So it's kind of fascinating for me to actually think about the spider holding this net very carefully and patiently waiting for a prey to come by. First of all, I want to clarify that spiders are not insects.
What?
Spiders are not insects. All are small critters. They are kind of drab and we don't pay attention to them. But spiders have 8 legs, 8 of everything, and insects have 6 legs and they have different body parts. But I'm clubbing both of them together for the kind of things that people can study and the kind of role they have in the larger scheme of things. So, like no self-respecting predator will eat a dead prey, spiders also don't catch dead things. The prey has to be moving and it has to be walking and, flying. So, spiders only eat live things. They eat a lot of insects and they also eat other spiders.
Fascinating. And the silk which spiders use to make these webs and nets, how do they produce it?
Spiders have 8 of everything. Right? So they have 8 eyes, they have 8 legs, they have up to 8 different kinds of silk also. So they have 8 silk glands and different kinds of silk comes out of these glands. And those silk are used for different things. For example, one kind of silk is used for making a web and another kind of silk is used to making their egg sac. So they produce a lot of eggs and they put a little case around that egg. So egg sac silk is a completely different protein. In fact, I should tell you that silk is made up of proteins and it is biodegradable. That means that a spider can just eat off its own silk and then recycle it. So it doesn't go wasted, but it can recycle the whole silk. So going back to different kinds of silk, what it does, it can build a web, it can make egg sac, it can also make a sleeping bag kind of a thing for it to sleep at night. So it can build a small little sleeping bag and at night it can go back in it and they can sleep on it. They can also make a little sling kind of a thing to move from one place to another place. So
like a bridge?
Like a bridge. From moving, say for example, moving from one branch to another branch, or say it is jumping from one branch to another leaf or something. They'll attach the branch with a little bit of silk and then they move. Like Spider-Man, of course. Going from one place to another place, that's what these spiders do.
You said earlier that spiders can even eat their own silk. Is that something that they do often or only when in dire need?
Most web building spiders actually build web at night to catch prey. And then during morning, they recycle their own web. So if you notice when you're walking early in the morning, if you have taken a walk, you'll find some spider web, hitting you. But during the daytime, once the sun has come out, there aren't that many spider webs. That's because these spiders, early in the morning, they'll eat up their own web. And that's pretty common, you see. Since it's proteins, they can eat up their own web. And it's nutritious for them.
So then why are there cobwebs in our homes that don't get eaten up and recycled? They just stay there for months.
That is an interesting question. So I should have said earlier that only some kinds of web building spiders recycle their web. Some invest a lot of time building their web. It's not that they build it overnight, but they add on silk day after day to build their very complicated web. And those kinds of webs don't get eaten up every night.
Interesting. And we also talked about silkworms in passing. So can spider silk also be used to make things?
Absolutely. In fact, there's a lot of research which is going on finding application of spider silk. Spider silk is one of the toughest materials found on earth. In fact, if you compare it with steel, so take the same thickness of spider silk and the same thickness of steel. In fact, spider silk is much tougher as a material than steel.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So because of that, you can use it for various, applications, various uses. This is still in making, but people are thinking of making bulletproof clothing or water resistant or wear resistant, very, very lightweight clothing. there are actual companies now making scarf out of spider silk. And there is also, ropes or nets or seat belts, which needs to be very tough. Those are being thought of, using spider silk as well. And also there are other applications as well, like medical applications such as bandages and surgical threads, which can be made up of spider silk. So it is it was very difficult to, it's still very difficult to rear spiders, because in order to mass produce spider silk, you need to have lot of spiders together, right? But that is nearly impossible because spiders are cannibals. So if you put many spiders together in one box, the larger ones will eat up the smaller ones. So that, like, next day morning you come in and open the box, you'll find only one spider there. So you can't mass rear spiders. You have to keep them individually and get silk out of them. So those are some practical, difficulties in mass rearing spiders.
So then how do you farm silk or produce silk in enough quantity to be able to make all of these products?
There are several ways which people have tried out to actually make synthetic spider silk. One of the ways is take spider silk genes, that is. So you know what is the blueprint of a silk, and that you insert it in a bacterial DNA and then make it to produce a lot of silk. And that's one technique which is recent and which has worked.
So we create bacteria which produce the silk, the same kind of silk that spiders produce.
Exactly. So bacteria are already there, but we engineer bacteria to produce silk. So bacteria can be engineered in multiple ways. They can produce a lot of different things, because all of us, all the living creatures, are made up of similar genetic material. So you can put one set of genes, cut it, and paste it into some other organism, and that will carry out the message. So because of advanced genetic technology, these kinds of applications is possible.
And presumably people are making this kind of effort because there is value to spider silk, right? It being very lightweight and also a very tough material. That's why so much research is going into it?
Absolutely. So it is lightweight, it is very tough, and it is biodegradable. So in terms of sustainability, spider silk is the way to go.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine people in the future wearing silk scarves made of spider silk, right? But I'm assuming that medical applications might be more common, no?
Absolutely. Because, you can use silk since it is biodegradable, you can use it for stitches or surgery because it's so tough. And of course, it can be taken up by body. It won't be considered as a foreign object. And there are a lot more medical application, and also perhaps in also other technologies rather than fashion industry for some reason.
The other common image we have of spiders is, often we read in children's books, one species of spiders which eats their mates. So can you tell us more about that and also other behaviors of spiders?
Oh, you are thinking about the black widow.
Right.
Yeah, it's called black widow for a reason, because these are commonly known as widow spiders, because they might eat their own mates after mating. And biologically speaking, it is quite useful because after mating, the male is of no use to the female and it can serve as a proteinaceous meal. So yes, why not? And also there is a lot of size difference between male and female spiders. Males are often small in size when compared to female. I'm not saying that this happens in all spiders, especially in black widow spiders and some spiders. There is what is known as sexual dimorphism. That means between the sexes, there are size differences, or there are very different aspects. Males are usually very colorful. Just like birds, males are very colorful. Even here in spiders, some males are very colorful. They're smaller in size and they often, display to the females. I'm segueing into something else, but I'll first talk about the black widow spiders. So there, the male usually plucks the female web. Female is sitting on the web and male plucks the female web and makes sure that female is in the right mood, and then goes and inserts his sperm onto the female very, very carefully, and then quickly gets out of her way because he doesn't want to get eaten. But sometimes it might happen that the mate can be a meal to the female spider. Like this, there are other spiders also which eat their mates. There are jumping spiders. In fact, we have it in our own campus near our football field. There are these very, very colorful spiders. The males are very pretty. They have this red face with a blue stripe on them, and they do a nice courtship dance. So you can imagine, peacocks dancing to the peahen, right? Similarly, these are as charismatic or even more charismatic than the peacock. It's just that they're small and nobody can see them. But they are dancing away in the football field to a female. And the female is rather picky, and she inspects multiple dances of multiple males and ultimately deciding to mate with one particular male. So what is it that female decides? What factors? Is it the color? Is it the dance? Is it larger male or elaborate dances? These are all very fascinating questions to a biologist, and that's something which we are studying. Okay, I want to move away from spider dances. There are many ways in which spider courts. Some spiders and even insects can give a gift, usually a prey. By prey, what I mean is a dead insect. So spiders can catch an insect. So when I say spiders, these also mean for other insects. It's not just for spiders. So they can catch a little prey and they can wrap it up. So imagine a boy giving a dairy milk chocolate, to a girl to impress the girl. But the chocolate might be very small, but the gift might be, very fancily wrapped up. Wrapping might be very fancy or flashy. So just like that, the prey might be very small, the dead insect might be very small, and sometimes no prey at all. It just might be a fancy wrapping, and the spider or the insect gives to the opposite sex. This is all to gain time so that he can quickly mate with the female. It's to distract the female so that while female is inspecting the gift, he can quickly mate with the female and get away. So these are multiple ways of mating in spider and insect system.
So when biologists study the behaviors of spiders and insects, what are some of the things that get studied?
You can pretty much study anything in any aspect of biology, what you actually study with larger animals. So you can study, their life cycle, how long a spider lives, where does it live, what does it do. You can study their behavior. So what does it eat and who eats them? So there are various, lizards, birds and gecko or frogs, even other insects and spiders who eat spiders. So you can study their biology. You can study biodiversity, how many spiders are there in the ecosystem. And there are different kinds of spiders living in different habitats in different regions. You can study that. You can also study something like sociality. That means that there are some groups of spiders which are social, so they live together.
So you have described for us the kind of role spiders play in a natural ecosystem. How should we think of this in urban ecosystems where we normally find them? We as humans often encounter them.
Spiders are everywhere. You might think that spiders are only found in forests or national parks or something like that, but they're everywhere. In fact, they're there even in your apartment complexes. I'll bet you that you might find at least 8 or 9 species of spiders in any of the apartment complexes. So spiders are quite useful. They will clean up your mosquitoes, so they'll catch your mosquitoes. So if you have these daddy long leg spiders, as they're called, these cobweb, which look like cobwebs, but they're in the corner of your houses. If you don't clean up those, they'll catch mosquitoes. They can also catch small cockroaches, and they generally keep insects away by catching them, of course. It's not that they'll always catch harmful insects, but they can also prey on pollinators. So, for example, if a spider is sitting on a flower and a bee comes to pollinate that flower, spiders can catch that bee. So it's not that spiders are always useful. There are some, negative impacts of spiders as well. But in an ecosystem, all animals, big and small, all creatures, big and small, are equally important. And everything is connected to one another. So it's important to keep that in mind when we are thinking about a role of a species in an ecosystem.
So it's clear that just like any other animal, be it tigers or lions, spiders have their own place in the ecosystem. But why do so many horror films have giant spiders or aliens with spider-like features? We don't see, many horror films being made with mosquitoes. So what is it about spiders that creates fear in humans?
So most movies which are, arachnophobia related movies come from the West. And of course with, dramatic special effects, and you can make it very giant and you can add all the sound effects, of course it will become scary. Anything will become scary if you make it like that. But in India, I don't think people are scared of spiders to that extent. In fact, there is a temple in India, in Kerala, which is where people go to get cured of the spider bites or spider venom. So there is a special god, spider god in Kerala. So I'm not aware of, that kind of fear of spiders, that rampant, that prevalent in India. But I've seen that, for example, your own daughter, she had the exposure, she was fascinated with critters and she's not scared of spiders. So it also depends on how parents bring them up, upbringing of their kids. And if parents are scared, then naturally kids will be scared.
Right. So many of us have watched these Spider-Man films, right? Where the Spider-Man is chasing some bad guy, jumping from building to building. And then he extends his wrists and the silk comes out.
Actually, Spider-Man movies are very popular, but as a biologist, I want to make a point. The Spider-Man movie shows the silk coming out of his wrist, but actually, the spider silk comes off the other end through its abdomen, through its rear end. So, of course, if Marvel Comics had it shown like that, that would have been, they wouldn't have made so much profit. But actually, spider silk comes from its tip of its abdomen through several, spinnerets. And the second point is, it's actually the spider woman. So it's mostly adult females which make elaborate webs and, engage so much with silk. It's not the Spider-Man. Male spiders, when they become, adults, they don't have so much of, elaborately built web. They go from place to place in search of female. So it should have been a spider woman movie.
So in fact, many species of insects and other small critters are becoming extinct because of expansion of human habitation, isn't it?
Yeah, of course. That's a huge problem. So people have termed it as insect apocalypse. In fact, that is going to hit us really badly because insects, they have a lot of economic importance. A lot of insects are responsible for pollinating our crops. So our, nuts and fruits and vegetables are all pollinated by many, many insects, not just bees, but several other insects. So if insects go extinct, all our food crops and nuts are going to be very, very pricey. And actually fruits or plants might go extinct as well. The other thing is insects and spiders are also food for many organisms. So if insects and spiders go extinct, or even a small proportion of them are going extinct, then you can see a collapse of next level, in the pyramid. So several bird species might go extinct and something else might go extinct. So it's like a domino effect that everything is linked to everything else.
The next time you see a spider, I hope that your first reaction is not to take off your chappal and smash it. Instead, maybe you will think about the beauty of the spiders, some of their social and antisocial behaviors that we have talked about, and the important role that they play in our ecosystem. Thanks for joining us on the show, Divya, and thanks for making us look at spiders from a very different lens.
Thank you, Richa.
Thanks everyone for joining us for Story of Spiders. on Radio Azim Premji University.
I'm Supriya Joshi from the Art and Culture function at the Azim Premji Foundation. There's a lot of great stuff that's happening on Radio Azim Premji University. Don't forget to check it out. Do subscribe to our channel. Yeah, bye-bye.
You're listening to
आप सुन रहे हैं
You're listening to
നിങ്ങൾ കേൾക്കുന്നത്
ನೀವು ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಇದ್ದೀರಾ
റേഡിയോ അസീം പ്രേംജി
ಯೂನಿವರ್ಸಿಟಿ
The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any entities they represent. This non-commercial program is for educational purposes only.